A nickel, in American usage, is a 5-cent coin struck by the United States Mint, composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The piece has been issued since 1866. Its diameter is 835 inches and its thickness is 0.77 inches. The silver half-dime, equal to 5 cents, had been issued since the 1790s. The American Civil War caused economic hardship, driving gold and silver from circulation. In response, in place of low-value coins, the government at first issued paper currency. In 1865, Congress abolished the 5-cent fractional currency note after Spencer M. Clark, head of the Currency Bureau, placed his own portrait on the denomination. After successful introduction of 2-cent and 3-cent pieces without precious metal, Congress also authorized a 5-cent piece consisting of base metal. The Mint began striking this version in 1866. The initial design of the shield nickel was struck from 1866 until 1883, then was replaced by the Liberty Head nickel. The Buffalo nickel was introduced in 1913 as part of a drive to increase the beauty of American coinage. In 1938, the Jefferson Nickel followed. In 2004 and 2005, special designs in honor of the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition were issued. In 2006, the Mint reverted to using Jefferson Nickel designer Felix Schlegel's original reverse, although a new Obverse, by Jamie Franke, was substituted. As of the end of FY 2013, it cost more than 9 cents to produce a nickel. The Mint is exploring the possibility of reducing cost by using less expensive metals. Background: the silver half-dime was one of the denominations prescribed by the Mint Act of 1792. Its weight and fineness were set by law. The first pieces under federal authority were half-dimes, struck in 1792 in the cellar of John Harper, a sawmaker. As the first federal mint was still under construction in Philadelphia, this took place locally at 6th and Cherry Streets. The dies were engraved by Adam Eckfeldt, who a half-century later recalled the silver for the half-dimes was supplied by President George Washington, and at the 1,500 coins struck from the bullion were given to Washington's Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson, for distribution to important people, both in the U.S. and overseas. By legend, President Washington supplied silverware from his home, Mount Vernon, to provide bullion for the coins. In his annual message to Congress in late 1792, Washington noted the ongoing construction of a mint building and stated, "There has also been a small beginning in the coinage of half-dimes, the want of small coins in circulation calling the first attention to them." In 1793, the newly established Philadelphia Mint began striking cents and half-cents. Coinage of precious metal was delayed. Congress required the assayer-in-chief coiner to each post a security bond of $10,000, a huge sum in 1793. In 1794, Congress lowered the chief coiner's bond to $5,000, and the assayer's to $1,000. President Washington's appointees to those positions were thus able to qualify and take office. Subsequently, silver coinage began that year. The half-dime was struck to various designs by mint engraver Robert Scott from 1794 until 1805. None were dated 1798, 1799, or 1804. By 1804, silver U.S. coins were heavily exported, as they could be exchanged at par in the West Indies with heavier Spanish coins, which were then imported as bullion and deposited at the mint for melting and restriking. In response, in 1804 the U.S. stopped striking silver dollars. Issuance of the half-dime was discontinued from 1805 until 1829. In 1807, Mint Director Robert Patterson in a letter explained to Jefferson, "Nearly the whole of our silver bullion come through the banks, and it is very seldom that they will consent to take any coin less than $half." Beginning in 1829, the silver 5-cent piece was again struck. Beginning in 1837, its fineness was increased from 8,924 to 900. Also in 1837, the half-dime's obverse design changed from one by William Niast depicting a bust of Liberty, to one that featured a seated Liberty by Christian Gobrecht. Until its abolition in 1873, the half-dime would bear modifications of this design. In 1851, it ceased to be the smallest U.S. silver coin as a 3-cent piece was issued by the Mint. Inception. The Civil War caused most American coins to vanish from circulation, with the gap filled by such means as merchant tokens, encased postage stamps, and United States fractional currency, issued in denominations as low as 3 cents. Although specie was hoarded or exported, the copper-nickel cent, then the only base metal denomination being struck, also vanished. In 1864, Congress began the process of restoring coins to circulation by abolishing the 3-cent note and authorizing bronze cents and 2-cent pieces, with low intrinsic values, to be struck. These new coins initially proved popular, though the 2-cent piece soon faded from circulation. On March 3, 1865, Congress passed legislation authorizing the Mint to strike 3-cent pieces of 75% copper and 25% nickel. In 1864, Congress authorized a third series of fractional currency notes. The 5-cent note was to bear a depiction of Clark, but Congress was appalled when the issue came out not with a portrait of William Clark, the explorer, but Spencer M. Clark, head of the Currency Bureau. According to numismatic historian Walter Breen, Congress's immediate infuriated response was to pass a law retiring the 5-cent denomination, and another to forbid portrayal of any living person on federal coins or currency. Clark kept his job only because of the personal intervention of Treasury Secretary Salmon P. Chase. Mint Director James Pollock had been opposed to striking coins containing nickel, but in view of the initial success of the copper-nickel 3-cent piece, he became an advocate of striking 5-cent pieces in the same metals. In his 1865 report, as Pollock wrote, "From this nickel alloy, a coin for the denomination of 5 cents, and which would be a popular substitute for the 5-cent note, could easily be made. Only until the resumption of specie payments, in time of peace, coins of inferior alloy should not be permitted to take the place permanently of silver in the coinage of pieces above the denomination of 3 cents. Industrialist Joseph Wharton had a near monopoly on the mining of nickel in the United States, and sought to promote its use in coinage. He was also highly influential in Congress. His friends there, though they had failed to obtain the metals used for the 2-cent piece, had been more successful with the base metal 3-cent coin. Pollock prepared a bill authorizing a 5-cent coin of the same alloy as the 3-cent piece, with a total weight not to exceed 60 grains. At the committee stage in the House of Representatives, the weight was amended to 77.19 grains, ostensibly to make the weight equal to 5 grams in the metric system, but more likely so that Wharton could sell more nickel. This made the new coin heavy, in terms of weight per dollar. 0.01 of face value, compared to the 3-cent copper-nickel coin. The bill passed without debate on May 16, 1866. The new copper-nickel coin was legal tender for up to $1, and would be paid out by the Treasury in exchange for coin of the United States, excluding the half-cent, cent and 2-cent. It was redeemable in lots of $100 for banknotes. Fractional currency in denominations of less than 10 cents was withdrawn. Shield nickel. In anticipation of the approval of the new 5-cent coin, the Mint's chief engraver, James B. Longacre, had begun preparing designs and pattern coins in 1865. After rejecting pieces showing deceased Presidents George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, Treasury Secretary Hugh McCulloch decided on a design similar to Longacre's 2-cent piece, with a shield on the obverse and a numeral 5 surrounded by stars and rays on the reverse. This has come to be known as the shield nickel. The new coins proved difficult to produce, owing to the hardness of the planche. The coins were not of high quality and the life of the striking dies was brief. The design was widely criticized. Wharton described the obverse as suggesting a tombstone surmounted by a cross and overhung by weeping willows. The American Journal of Numismatics described the shield nickel as the ugliest of all known coins. The rays were eliminated from the reverse design in 1867, in the hope of eliminating some of the production problems. The design change created confusion among the population. Many people assumed that one design of the other was a counterfeit, and the Mint briefly considered abandoning the shield design entirely. After heavy production in its first years, by late 1869, enough nickels had been struck to meet the needs of commerce. Fewer were coined in the following years. The new coins tended to accumulate in the hands of merchants beyond the legal tender limit, but banks refused to accept them beyond the $1 maximum. Store owners were forced to discount the coins to brokers. Postmasters, compelled by law to accept the coins, found that the Treasury would not accept them as deposits except in lots of $100. In accordance with the authorizing statute, in 1871, Congress alleviated the problem by passing legislation allowing the Treasury to redeem unlimited quantities of nickels and other low-denomination coins when presented in lots of not less than $20. It was not until 1933, long after the shield design passed from the scene, that the nickel was made legal tender without limit. Half-dimes continued to be struck at both the Philadelphia and the San Francisco Mint, until the series was ended by the Coinage Act of 1873. Despite the abolition, the silver pieces continued to circulate in the West, where silver or gold coins were preferred. Throughout the remainder of the 19th century, improved economic conditions, combined with low silver prices, brought large quantities of hoarded silver coinage, including half-dimes, into circulation beginning in April 1876. In late 1876, production of the shield nickel was halted. No shield nickels were struck in 1877 or 1878, excepting proof specimens for collectors. As the Treasury had a large stock of nickels in storage, only small numbers were struck over the next few years. Full-scale production did not resume until December 1881. Liberty Head or V nickel, with production of nickels lagging in the late 1870s, and with minimal strikings of the copper-nickel 3-cent piece. Wharton sought to increase the use of nickel at the Mint. The bronze cent represented a major portion of the Mint's production, and Wharton began to lobby for the piece to be struck in copper-nickel, as it had been from 1857 until 1864. In 1881, this lobbying led Philadelphia Mint Superintendent Archibald Loudon Snowden to order Mint engraver Charles Barber to produce uniform designs for a new cent, 3-cent piece, and 5-cent piece. Snowden required that the new coins depict the head of Liberty with the legend Liberty and the date, with the nickels reversed to have a wreath of wheat, cotton, and corn around a Roman numeral V, a 4, 5, to denote the denomination. Under the proposal, the nickel would retain its weight of 5 grams, but its diameter would be increased to 22 millimeters. Barber duly produced the required designs. Snowden eventually decided against a new center 3-cent piece, but Barber continued work on the nickel, with the size adjusted to 21.21 millimeters. When specimens were sent to Washington for routine approval by Treasury Secretary Charles J. Folger, to Snowden's surprise, they were rejected. The Secretary, on review of the coinage statutes, had realized that the laws required United States of America to appear on the reverse, not the obverse where Barber had placed it. Barber modified his design accordingly, and the coin was ready for striking in early 1883. However, by then, Shield nickels dated 1883 had already been coined. To ensure these pieces would not be hoarded for the Rarity, Mint officials kept the two designs in production side by side for several months. Criminals soon realized that the new nickel, which lacked the word cents, was close in size to the $5 gold piece, and if they were to plate the nickel with gold, it might be passed for $5. Some coins were even given a reeded edge by fraudsters, making them appear more like the gold coins. The Mint halted production of the new coins. Production of Shield nickels continued. Barber was told to modify his work, which he did, moving other design elements to accommodate the word cents at the bottom of the reverse. The revised nickel was issued on June 26, 1883, the date on which production of the Shield nickel was finally stopped. The public promptly hoarded the centless nickels, believing the Treasury Department intended to recall them, and that they would become rare. The Liberty Head nickel was heavily struck during its 30-year run, except during economic downturns in 1885 to 1886 and in 1894, when only small numbers were struck. In 1890, Congress ended production of the 3-cent piece, leaving the 5-cent coin as the only one in copper-nickel. That year, Congress also allowed the Secretary of the Treasury to authorize the redesign of United States coins, if the former design had been struck for at least 25 years. Although the nickel and silver dollar had been redesigned within the previous quarter-century, a provision in the latter act made them eligible for immediate redesign. In 1896, patent nickels were struck for the first time since 1885, when experimental hold coins had been tested. However, no redesign took place. Growth of the nickel in commerce coin-operated machines to vend food, for amusement, and for gambling became popular in the 1890s. Such machines could be placed on otherwise unused floor space in businesses, required little maintenance, and brought in money for owners. Beginning about 1898, coin-operated mechanical pianos also became popular. The Mills Novelty Company was a leading producer of such devices. By 1906, it was producing machines ranging from a mechanically played violin to fortune-telling devices. While some machines took cents or other denominations, the nickel was the coin of choice for these machines. Among the innovations in business caused by the use of the nickel in coin-operated machines was the automat, in which patrons would serve themselves by inserting a coin into a mechanism, turning a handle, and removing a sandwich or dessert. These restaurants were first established in Germany, but were popularized in the United States by, among other firms, Horn and Amp. Hard art, a type of business which took its name from the coin, was the Nickelodeon Cinema, where a nickel bought admission to view a series of one-reel short films, generally about 12 minutes in length, which ran continuously from early afternoon until late at night, with the patron free to remain as long as he liked. Although another denomination gave the penny arcade its name, the nickel was commonly used there as well. Few nickels had circular circulated in the western states before the 1880s. Interest in the new Liberty head design had led to increasing use of nickels. Their good economic conditions and high demand for nickels for use in coin-operated devices caused the piece to circulate throughout the nation by 1900. That year, Mint Director George E. Roberts called on Congress to quintuple the Mint's appropriation to purchase base metals for striking into nickels and cents. At the time, statutory restrictions permitted production of cents and nickels only at Philadelphia. Roberts' request that Congress allow striking at the other mints was granted in 1906. The Denver and San Francisco mints began striking nickels in 1912. 1913 Liberty Head Nickel Rarity. The Liberty Head nickel was replaced after 1912, and initially there was no indication that 1913 dated pieces with that design existed. In December 1919, a coin dealer, Samuel W. Brown, placed advertisements in coin publications offering to buy 1913 Liberty Head nickels. The following August, Brown appeared at the annual American Numismatic Association convention bearing such a piece. Brown claimed that a master die had been prepared for 1913 and that these pieces had been run off to test it. As it turned out, Brown possessed 5 coins, which he eventually sold. After spending 15 years in the hands of the eccentric Col. E.H. R. Green, the famous Fort Worth, Texas area collector, the coins were finally dispersed in 1943. Since then, they have had several owners each. Today, 2 are on public display at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington and the ANA's Money Museum in Colorado Springs, while 3 are owned privately. The most recent sale of a 1913 Liberty Head nickel was in January 2010, when one sold for $3,737,500 in an auction. It is uncertain how the 1913 nickels came to be made. The Mint's records show no production of 1913 Liberty Head nickels, and none were authorized to be made. Dies were prepared in advance and sent to California for a 1913s Liberty Head nickel coinage, but upon orders from Mint Director Roberts in December 1912 to end the old design, they were returned to Philadelphia. They were received by December 23 and were almost certainly destroyed routinely by early January. Brown had been an employee at the Philadelphia Mint, and many theories focus suspicion on him. Buffalo or Indian head. President Theodore Roosevelt in 1904 expressed his dissatisfaction with the artistic state of American coins, and hoped to hire sculptor Augustus St. Gaudens to beautify them. St. Gaudens, before his 1907 death, designed a new eagle and double eagle, which entered circulation that year. The cent, quarter eagle, and half eagle were redesigned by other artists and were released into circulation by 1909. That year, Mint Director Frank Leach instructed Barber to make pattern coins for new nickels. Most of these coins featured the first President, George Washington. However, the project was discontinued when Leach left office on November 1, 1909, to be replaced by Abram Andrew. On May 4, 1911, Eames McVey, son of Treasury Secretary Franklin McVey, wrote to his father, "A little matter that seems to have been overlooked by all of you is the opportunity to beautify the design of the nickel a 5-cent piece during your administration, and it seems to me that it would be a permanent souvenir of a most attractive sort. As possibly you are aware, it is the only coin the design of which you can change during your administration, as I believe there is a law to the effect that the designs must not be changed oftener than every 25 years. I should think also it might be the coin of which the greatest numbers are in circulation. Soon after the McVeigh letter, Andrew announced that the Mint would solicit new designs for the nickel. Sculptor James Earl Fraser, who had been an assistant to St. Gordon's, approached the Mint and rapidly produced concepts and designs. Mint director George Roberts, who had returned to office in place of Andrew, initially favored a design featuring Lincoln, but Fraser soon developed a design featuring a Native American on one side and a bison on the other. Secretary McVeigh wrote, "Tell him that of the 3 sketches which he submitted, we would like to use the sketch of the head of the Indian and the sketch of the buffalo." Quote, in July 1912, news of the new nickel became public, and coin-operated machine manufacturers sought information. Clarence Hobbs of the Hobbs Manufacturing Company, maker of counterfeit detectors, feared the new nickel would not be passed by his devices. Hobbs demanded various changes to the design, to which the artist was reluctant to agree. The Hobbs Company continued to interpose objections in 1913. On February 3, Hobbs sent Roberts a lengthy list of changes that he wanted in the coin, and the sculptor was required to attend a conference with Hobbs' representatives. On the 5th, following the conference, which ended with no agreement, Fraser sent McVeigh a 10-page letter, complaining that his time was being wasted by the Hobbs Company, and appealing to the secretary to bring the situation to a close. Secretary McVeigh agreed to hold a meeting at his office in Washington on February the 14th. Barber prepared patterns showing what the nickel would look like if the changes demanded by Hobbs were made. McVeigh conducted the meeting much like a legal hearing, and issued a letter the following day. The secretary noted that no other firm had complained that the Hobbs mechanism had not been widely sold, and that the changes demanded a clear space around the rim and the flattening of the Indian's cheekbone would affect the artistic merit of the piece. McVeigh concluded, "You'll please therefore proceed with the coinage of the new nickel." The coins were officially released to circulation on March 4, 1913, and quickly gained positive comments for depicting truly American themes. However, the New York Times stated in an editorial that the new nickel is a striking example of what a coin intended for wide circulation should not be, is not pleasing to look at when new and shiny, and will be an abomination when old and dull. The Numismatist, in March and May 1913 editorials, gave the new coin a lukewarm review, suggesting that the Indian's head be reduced in size and a bison be eliminated from the reverse. Dies for the new design proved to break quickly. Barber made proposed revisions, which Fraser approved after being sent samples. These changes enlarged the legend 5 cents, and changed the ground on which the bison stands from a hill to flat ground. According to data compiled by numismatic historian David Longley from the National Archives, the changes to what are known as Type 2 nickels actually decreased the die life. A problem not addressed was the exposure of the date to where many buffalo nickels today have the date worn away. In January 1938, the Mint announced an open competition for a new nickel design, to feature early President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, and Jefferson's home, Monticello, on the reverse. The last buffalo nickels were struck in April 1938 at the Denver Mint, the only mint to strike them that year. Design and name controversies. The identities of the models for the Native American on the obverse and for the bison on the reverse are not known with certainty. Fraser stressed that the Indian was a type, rather than based on a specific individual, and identified various Native Americans as models, not always consistently, including Iron Tail, Two Moons, and Big Tree. There have been other claimants, the most prominent being John Big Tree, a Seneca, who made many public appearances as the Nickel Indian until his death in 1967. Fraser recounted that the animal on the reverse was an American bison, Black Diamond, whom he stated lived at the Bronx Zoo, and also described the model simply as a bison at the Bronx Zoo. However, Black Diamond was never at the Bronx Zoo, but instead lived at the Central Park Zoo until the animal was sold and slaughtered in 1915. The placement of the horns on the still extant, mounted head of Black Diamond differs from that of the bison on the nickel. From its inception, the coin was referred to as the Buffalo Nickel, reflecting the common misnomer for the bison. The numismatic publication with the greatest circulation, Coin World, calls it an Indian head nickel, while R.S. Yeoman's Red Book refers to it as an Indian head, a buffalo type.